Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Heart Warriors. This is a series I've been inspired and guided to do thanks to my energetic connection to Kata Judah. Kata Judah is the sacred masculine site in Central Australia, very close to Uluru, the sacred feminine site. What I'm here to do is to give a platform to our men to share their journey into the heart, their experiences, their insights, their wisdom, their tools, their practices. What have they picked up along the way that they can now share with others walking this path, other men who are coming into the heart, coming home, and also us women who are trying to get a better understanding into our beautiful men and their masculine journey. Today's guest is a man living in Mexico, and his name is Eugene Linton. And, I'm really keen to interview Eugene. He's very articulate, very knowledgeable, wisdom for his relatively young age. So, I'm keen to hear what the younger generation are going through, their insights and their specific ideas about masculinity. So really looking forward to this interview. Let's bring Eugene on. Enjoy the show.
All righty.
Hello, Eugene Linton. Welcome to Heart Warriors.
Thank you for having me. Just to get the beginning details, are you in Australia? What's kind of your background and where are you from a little bit? Sorry for asking the questions. But
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm from Australia, near Brisbane, about 90 minutes north of Brisbane. And if you're not aware, this rock formation behind us is the sacred masculine site, and that's the energies that are coming through with this series. And it's close to Uluru, which is the sacred feminine site. So, it's very much about the masculine, feminine energies in harmony and balance, and coming through to unite and heal. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I was just wondering, and I've always just pictured Australia as really red. Am I correct in that?
Well, the center is all desert. There's really only a green patch running down the east coast, southeast, and the east coast. So other than that, on the other side of the mountains, right across to Perth, it's all red desert. Yeah, exactly like this. Well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So you're right.
Fantastic.
You lived some past lives there.
Yeah. But that's awesome. I'm going to forward you a link of architects talking about some fascinating things about Australia. I don't know if you've looked into it, but some of the oldest history, like Indian culture and stuff, is in Australia. Because at one point the land masses were connected and all this kind of stuff. So Australia is just so fascinating, and marsupials too. They're such a special species, and it kind of shows the environmental change and these different kinds of things, like with the vapor canopy and all this stuff. And it just happens to be that Australia is just a very good land to be in when catastrophe happens.
Well, often when I'm flying over, because I often fly from Brisbane to Uluru, it just looks like a nuclear, war zone. It is so desolate and without any plants or anything, big salt lakes. So that'll be fascinating. Maybe we can put it in the link, the links down below.
Yeah, let's get into the heart of the issue. Do you have any questions perhaps we could open with?
You. Okay. Look, I found you on Charlie Freak's show, and amazed at obviously knowing you're relatively young, but your wisdom, your articulation. So let's find out about Eugene. Can I ask, who is the man you are today, and then we'll find out how you got there.
Well, I had to start off with saying I don't know completely. So every day I'm figuring out who this guy is. So. I do want to start with that I don't know myself either. And I have to, every day I have to wake up and say, who is this guy? I have to, because this is the thing, Gemma, is that our society tells us who to be. You know what I mean? Our society, our whole lives, since we're babies, indoctrinate us to say, this is what you're supposed to do and this is what you're not supposed to do. So my whole life essentially has been a process of questioning that and saying, what do I really believe down at the core that aligns with what these other people are saying, and what do I actually see myself? So in that sense, but some general things. I'm from Korea. Yeah, I'm half Korean actually. My mother is Korean, and my father is American, but he grew up in Korea. So very Korean culture, and at the same time, yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Spent most of my life in Korea, and then came to America, and then for 2 years for college and all this kind of stuff. And the coronavirus hit, and I just reevaluated my entire life, my whole trajectory, and said, things are really not going the way I want to do. I want it to go, and I'm doing things I don't necessarily want to do that are not in line with my passion. And so, at some point, I just dropped everything, went to Mexico. Started living this tropical life, and realized there was, how do you say, more than what society was offering me at that point in time. So I guess, I don't know if that gives you a good enough explanation of who I am, but those are the basics.
Yeah, no, I love that. So let's delve into your childhood. What would you say was the biggest challenge for you growing up?
Ooh, biggest challenge in my childhood. I would have to say not fitting in. I was the guy that basically was friends with all of the the people in my school. You know what I mean? I never had one group. You see what I'm saying? I never had one a sect and friend group I identified with. I mean, there were 3 or 4 guys that I was real buddies with, but I never really liked these labels of I'm in this group or I'm in that group. So I guess when I was younger, the biggest thing was taking sides. That was the most difficult thing for me, I suppose, is being on someone's side. I don't want to be on anyone's side. You know what I mean? And so I guess from the very beginning, it was a matter of identification, I suppose. I would much rather prefer not to identify as anything. And people, just they like to categorize, they like to generalize, and it's not a bad thing. Our second nature, our brain is meant to digest and filter through information very quickly. But so I guess that was my biggest thing. I think was fitting in, and being comfortable with not fitting in, if that makes sense.
Right. Can you give us an insight into specifically Korean life? What are the expectations of a man growing up in Korea? In South Korea?
Yeah. Well, let's see how I want to explain this. The thing is, I think many places around the world, it's skewed what a man is. Because, for instance, Gemma, I think a man should be able to stand up for his beliefs, like what he knows to be true and what he knows to be right and wrong, regardless of if the entire society is against him. But the way Asia is set up, with the fall of the samurai and all these kinds of things, it's very capitulation oriented. Just like with the Western society, all of that has come in, right? It's very much like, again, men are told what to be, what to do, who they are, when they're toxic, when they're not, and then they just, accept it and move on. And Korea has really suffered this. So I don't know if I can give you an accurate representation of what an Asian man should be, but I will say they are slightly more traditional, slightly more conservative than the normal front of things. And I will say that in the media and all this kind of stuff, it's just decadence. It's just like America. It's with this pop, this influence of pop, and K-pop is real big, right? Everything, like guys have become much more feminized. There's a lot of makeup wearing. There's a lot of plastic surgery is huge in Korea. I mean, the Chinese come every year. There's so much plastic surgery being done for everyone around the world. And Korea has just become a very superficial, how do you say it, front making, whether it's in the K-pop industry, whether it's in plastic surgery, whatever it is. Korea has kind of become very superficial, especially in the cities, just like everywhere else in the world. So does that answer your question about Korea a bit?
Yeah. So is it for the men as well, the young men that are this plastic surgery is getting pushed on?
Well, I think more and more. I think before it was a lot more on females, and it was a lot more about beauty standards and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know if you've seen some of these K-pop guys. They look like girls. You know what I mean? And I have long hair. They have short hair, but they still look more girly than me. You see what I'm saying, right? So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just a very weird. Like now that I see it, because till now I haven't really thought of it much, right? But now that you're bringing it up, it's just a very weird MK Ultra psyop type, just a conditioning kind of a thing. So yeah, but again, it was mostly for girls, I think, with the plastic surgery and all this kind of stuff. But definitely now more and more it's being pushed on guys.
So I'm really interested because I know you're so aware of what's going on in the background. So let's bring that in. Where is this push coming from for
That's a good question.
Feminized and for this whole distortion of men being allowed to walk in their authenticity?
You just gave me chills, because that is literally the heart of the matter. Like that question right there, because what is the purpose of all of this really, right? Because if you really go into it, for me, I think a man should always take full responsibility. For a woman, it depends. But for a man is based on his level of being able to be responsible, being able to be competent, being able to be the captain of the ship. And what's been happening today is now, there are no captains being produced. The ability, the competency, to steer one's own ship has been taken from men, has been ripped out from men's hands. So really what's happening is men are no longer men. And the reason for that is that if there are no strong men to safeguard a nation, you can come infiltrate it and completely destroy it, because it's only men that are protecting malicious and malignant entities, ideologies, all of these things from coming into the women and children. Because again, the women and children need to be protected. The men are supposed to be going to war, and I'm not saying war is good, but I'm saying no men are capable of waging and defending a war from tyrants and outsiders. So again, I think the key to the feminizing of men is to take away the ability to basically protect values, all the chivalry, all this kind of stuff, to take away, a masculine foundation and boundary for the feminine to thrive. And so men have become very influenceable, very easily swayed, very pushovery. And if I want to give you an example, it's kind of like, now in schools, it's like, if you say you're homosexual, you get a clap. But if you say you're straight, it's kind of like cricket. It's like, what's new? What's special? So it's special. And, you get a little bit of victim privilege, quote unquote, if you identify as anything other than a strong man, right? Because in today's society, a strong man is a toxic man, right? Today's society, a man who can stand up for what is right and says, like, for instance, for me, it's like, if the food that you're eating is genetically inconsistent, you should not be eating it. I don't care what you tell me. It's kind of like this. It's like, if something is so obvious to me, I should be able to stand up for it and fight to the death for it. That's the job of a man, is to virtuously fight to the death for the woman and the child. But this is what's been taken away from men, and now men are just pushovers. Does that make sense, Gemma?
Oh, honestly, I'm getting emotional because the way you've articulated it is so beautiful and resonating. Can we continue on that path? Because I can see you're so passionate about that. What else have you got to say? Just roll while you're on that, in that energy.
So I don't want to make this about men and women and the verses and who's better, because there's no better or worse. But men are not supposed to be built as enablers. So the father figure, right, the masculine role, the father is the one who's supposed to push you and supposed to challenge you, right? He's not supposed to enable you. He's not really the one that's supposed to make things comfortable for you. I mean, of course, sometimes, yes, sometimes he cares after you. He does the kind of brute strength, like, I protect you and these kinds of things. But it's the mother's role to come into your life and say, do this with love and care, do this, do that, it's okay, and comforting and all this kind of stuff. I call it enabling. Men are not supposed to be enablers. But today's society, men enable everything. So this is the wrong kind of surrender, which is I surrender even if it's decadent, even if there's bullshit being said, I'm just going to listen to it and pretend like nothing happened. Men need to be able to voice their concerns immediately. It's women that are much more refined and controlled and less brute, that they can keep that to themselves much more. Men, on the other hand, are supposed to be the ones that are boisterous and kind of clumsy, a little funny, right? A little ironic. There has to be that kind of element to it because, you know, we can't be, I don't know how to say it. And the thing is, Gemma, I'm a very feminine guy. Like, you know, I'm masculine and feminine, right? If you go to like my friends and ask them and just, you know, how I care for nature, like my old friends, my high school friends, how I care for nature, how I'm so in tune with the earth, you know, how I care about fruits and not hurting animals and all these, very feminine, you know, it's a very receptive, sensitive traits to have, even with me now growing out my hair because I don't care what they have to say, right? I think these are much more feminine because again, any kind of receiving, the female is a receptor, right? The male is a giver. So any kind of receiving is a very feminine trait. And so don't get me wrong, you know, I really respect the feminine in me as well. But, you know, when I look down at myself, when I look down and I'm not wearing any clothes, there's a reality I'm faced with, you know? So it's this kind of a thing. It's like, I think, again, men today are acting like women. And see, this is tough. Let's really get deep into it. So women now are trying to make men weak. And I'm not saying all women. I'm saying the general woman that's influenced by society and is conditioned, it now thinks that a man should not be a man. A man should not be toxic, that a man should be an enabler. So what's happening is now a man who cares so much about society's feelings and what other people have opinions of him is now being turned into a girl by societal pressures, right? And so what's happening now is that essentially the woman stops respecting a man when a man can't be a man. Because again, the rise of homosexuality and this transgenderism and this pride, I don't mind about homosexuals. Like I've had homosexual friends in the past, you know, I'm not against them. I'm against pride, the concept of why should I be proud because of my sexual orientation? If it's natural, I don't need to be proud about it, right? I'm not proud about being straight. So in this kind of sense, it's like what's happening now is that we're attributing pride into being a very womanly man, and we're not giving any respect that's due for a man that knows what he wants, knows what he's not going to put up with, and really, how should I say, has limited availability. So this is the thing. I think a woman, like with Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, with Galadriel and Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, the woman is in the background and she's available to the community. She's sharing. She's constantly one with the force that is together. A man, Luke Skywalker, Gandalf, has the capability to go off on his own and do his own thing. And he again, that's yin and yang. Positive action is I'm going, I'm doing, I'm planning. You know, I'm doing all these things. I have direction. There's a force involved. Yin is no force, is rest, is no control. It's holding space. It's no assertion. It's almost a complete how do you say, return of energy, because it's basically the female, the negative side of the arc, that returns this positive spark. So in that sense, you know, how do you say it? I feel like, and the opposite is true too. The females, yin they're trying to turn yin into yang. So they're also, what they're doing on the other hand, is trying to make females much more assertive, much more masculine, much more controlling, much more dominant. And you can see this in cartoons like Family Guy, Homer Simpson's, right? The father is always a dumb, he doesn't know what the heck to do, he doesn't know what he's doing, right? And then the mother is the over masculine figure that has to come in and take care of the family because the man is incompetent, right? So men should not have to lose their admiralty with their incompetence. I guess that's the heart of the matter I'm going to. Because if a man can keep a ship safe, can keep his ship together, right, can keep the ship rolling and on course and stay true and not a swing, right, then the woman and children can be safe, protected, and happy on that ship, on that relationship, right? Or you could call it citizenship or all of these things. So a man has a duty not only to himself, but to others, to be, how do you say it? reasonably defiant, shall we say, if that makes sense, reasonably able to stand up for what he knows is right. And when he's wrong, you know, we all have to admit that. And that's all points we have to work on. But yeah, do you think we're going in a good trajectory? Do you want to enter in here and kind of push in a direction?
Absolutely love it. And, you know, let's take a step further back. Because this is really important, this shift in the masculine and feminine dynamics around women becoming more controlling.
Yeah.
So what happened when the feminist movement was introduced? I mean, around
Yeah.
World War II, when the men were off to war and the women filled the positions, what damage did that do to society?
Yeah, that's seriously, again, another great core point. Is really what happened during this wartime. And essentially what happened was, you know, kind of after that, what happened was men were able to, I'm kind of going off of the trajectory a bit, so let me know if you want me to come back, but men were able to provide for the family completely, right? Men were able to work alone, to go alone to his job, be left alone, be left in respect, and just go do his thing. And this is the concept of a man cave and all these kinds of things, is that there's a time where a man just needs to be alone and needs to do what he got to do. And then, you know, there's no questions, right? So in this sense, before, man was respected and, you know, paid and, you know, was able to provide for the family. But what happened was in recent times, with these feminist movements, with all of these things, which are really Jesuit Rockefeller agendas, trying to tax more of the population. Because before, when females weren't a majority of the workforce, they were going untaxed. So even from an economic, financial standpoint, it was huge for a family, because essentially all of the labor that the woman was providing to that family unit was free. You see, what was completely love, what was completely no sense of I need to work hard and beat a man at his trade and all these kinds of things, right? So you know, in that time period, what happened was, and I don't know how long, and it could have been a long process. I don't really know exactly when, but what happened was the man's ability to provide was being taken away slowly but surely. And after the man couldn't provide, of course, the woman didn't respect him. Of course, the society didn't respect him. Of course, no one took the man seriously. And you know, how do you say it? It's like, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say on that front. But again, that before, man took care of the job such that the woman didn't need to do his job for him. But now that's not the case. Now women have to go out, compete against men, get taxed, you know, all of these different things. Basically, you know, in some sense be owned by the government, because, you know, how it's structured in the Bible and different things. It's like your father was handing you off to another good man, a man who wasn't going to hurt you, a man who wasn't going to be violent to you. But how it's structured now is the government basically owns you. That's why men get wrecked in these marital lawsuits and all this kind of stuff, because essentially they're going against the government. Because what's happening right now is we're essentially overcompensating for a woman. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are cases where men are just absolute dicks and they need to, you know, settle in some sense. I don't dismiss that. But overall, you know, I think 75 to 80% of marriages are end with a woman saying, I want a divorce. So in this sense, and again, just to see, like, for instance, if a man has proof that the woman was cheating and whatever and all this kind of stuff, it would still be tough for the court to rule in his favor. So just how the things are portrayed right now, or how the things are right now, it's very, how do you say, it's very non-incentivizing for a man to settle down and provide for a family, whether it's the pay, whether it's, you know, the marriage, whether it's the government issues, whether it's all of these things. So basically what they're doing is they're destroying the family by giving no incentive of being a man. Because if you were, it's much better to be a gay guy who's going to these pride festivals and you know, getting that praise that way, than to be a strong man, because you're just going to get called toxic. You know, you're just going to get called, you're just going to get shunned to the outside of society, because basically what they're doing is they've made what a man is disgusting.
Gosh, oh, this is just a conversation. And I know we touched on it before, but remind us there is an agenda behind this. And just
Yes.
remind us what that agenda is and its purpose, because it's playing out so perfectly for those behind the agenda.
And you know, I think it's perfect, just like you said. I think those men who are being influenced, you know, they deserve to be influenced, really, because, you know, at the end of the day, there is a system that's working against us, sure, but who powers and fuels that system is us. So again, that's why I take the route of full responsibility. It is every single man's responsibility that the system is decadent, valueless, and not chivalrous at all anymore. It is 100% a man's responsibility, because it's a man's responsibility to safeguard the woman. Even if the woman is, you know, trying to sink the ship and setting on fires and saying, you know, I hate what you are as a man and all these kinds of things. It's a man's job to, under all pressure, under all pain, under all circumstance, keep his ship afloat and again, keep his ship together and stay true on his path. But again, men today, I don't know, they're just, you know, it's very sad when you think about it. But again, like I said, it's perfect how it is. Those people that want to be decadent men will end up in Sodom and Gomorrah. We'll end up in these decadent societies where the sexual creative spark is just null and void. It's useless, and no one can create babies anymore because we don't have any seeds. You know, we're eating all this genetically modified fruit. In California, you got atrazine, which is literally making males more into females. So you really got a gay agent in the water. You know, all these kinds of different things. So it's like, yeah, you know, I don't even know where to begin with those topics.
Well, we could go in 100 different directions here, and you know, I always got a question in my head and it keeps changing. So it's like, oh gosh, okay, so which direction would you like to take this conversation in? Because, you know, I just loved your passion, and you've got so much, like, I think a question that came up is when we touch on the imbalance between the masculine and feminine in a relationship dynamic, with the man more in his feminine and the woman having to take the place, and society's pushed her into that place. And I know I grew up with a very controlling mother. I was in that place, so I can fully relate. What does that feel like to a man? And it doesn't have to be from your experience of personal relationships, but just people you meet in everyday life. Can you give us a man's, and also so men that might not be aware that this has happened, the dynamic playing out? Can you articulate that dynamic?
Yeah, so one more time. So let me just reiterate your question. So you're saying, I guess, what are the implications of an over-controlling woman? Is that kind of your question?
Yeah, what does that feel like for a man? Why doesn't he step up?
Yeah, well, yeah, again, it's just because he's been beat down so much. You know, there's no respect to a man, really, and really a man is not doing things worthy of respect either. So, you know, it's kind of a two-way thing, I suppose. But yeah, how does it feel? I don't really know. You know, for me, I'm not much of an enabler. So when someone tries to control what I do, I say, no. You know, I'm a sovereign. I'm my own nation. I'm self-governing. You know, at some point, you know, I got to do what I got to do, regardless of other people's opinions. Not that I'm going to be unreasonable, right? But at the same time, it's like, with reason, I'm going to do what I have to do, and really, that's the end of the story. So that kind of stuff. But let's see. Let's talk about you were talking about the control front, and
I love what you said about yourself, Eugene. You said, well, you described that, you know, you had a lot of feminine in you. Well, I don't feel that. You know, you're coming across like such a passionate, well, heartwarming. I'm just blown away because, as I said, you know, I've got two sons who are 20 and 23, and they are definitely going to be watching this show. And I imagine you're somewhere around there. Are you?
Yeah, 22, I think. Yeah, 22.
There you go. And this is show number 22. So just absolutely blown away.
Yeah, fantastic.
But I love how you just said so confidently your feminine was not being effeminate, but it was because you were connected to the earth, because you were receptive to, you didn't say this, but receptive to God. Can you describe this individual dynamic that we've all got in us, both masculine and feminine energies, and how does that play out on the polarity scale?
Well, Jesus always goes with Mary Magdalene. right? So we are electrical beings. That's why I'm always about alkaline electric food. You want electricity. You don't want dead food. Acidic food has no energy, right? So in the same sense, the sun is the electricity. That's why we call him El in the sky, right? Michael or whatever you want to call it, El, right? And the Mary, the Ma, the mother, is the one raising this El. So, if you really think about it, our spine is the sperm, right? Our spine is like the spirit. Our central nervous system is the snake, really. Or you could look at it as a nail, right? Like the nail on the cross of incarnation, of crucifixion, all these different things. But what happens is, let's see. Mary always goes with Jesus because Mary is the one who raises Jesus. Magnetism is the one who raises electricity. So if you think about it, again, our spine is the sperm cell. The egg is our body, right? So the egg is the tissue, right? So, we're really in a feminine experience. We're in materialities. We're 100% feminine, right? So it's these kinds of things. It's like, when I take part in fruit, when I do all these worldly things, it's a mother thing. It's Jesus and the mother. And then that energy exchange. Do you have a toxic relationship with Mother Earth or not? So it's these kinds of things. So there's that. And I guess that's where it kind of ties in. But I don't know. Is there any other questions you would like to ask on that front?
Well, I was just hoping you could articulate to someone who isn't aware, a man that maybe said, well, I don't have feminine energy, what does that look like in a man's character? What do you believe is the healthy balance within the male individual of masculine and femininity?
So you can basically look at this as positive as action and the negative as inaction. So when we're listening to someone, we're not active, right? Or because if we're listening with action, that's not listening, right? So basically, when you're in stillness or when you're receiving someone's message, that's a very feminine trait. And so it's these kinds of things. Is that basically just action is, like you said, is unbalanced and not good. That being said, there's a lot more action in a guy than in a female. A female is much more restful. A female is much more refined. So in this sense, a man can kind of, I guess, work on his delivery and different things like this, how he says things and how controlled he is, how humble he is, how reserved he is. So in that regard, yes, I think femininity is very important to a man because it's like the feminine energy or the female teaches a man how to be soft, right? Because if this world was just a manly world, just a business world, things would be gruesome. Things would be horrible. Things would be just war and business contracts. That would be the end of it. But the woman, the life-giving principle, she who brings in new consciousness onto the earth, again, that's something completely different. That's a receptive energy that man doesn't have. Dr. Sebi says, the woman is a healer. I'm not a healer. I might be the messenger or the medium who's bringing you the healing. The woman is the healer. So like when you're sick and when you're, when you're not your best and all these kinds of things, that feminine energy, there's nothing like it. That motherly energy, nothing like it. That's of its own. And so I don't know if you're noticing here, but I don't hate the feminine, I just hate when we call the masculine bad without reason. If there's a good reason to call out the masculine, I'm all for it. But how right now it's structured is immediately castigate the masculine, and the feminine is the good cop, and it's always structured this way so that if we talk to other people about our relationship, if we talk to the society about our relationships, with guys, with girls, all this kind of stuff, immediately their predisposition is to be on the girl's side. And that's fine because we have to stand up for the underdog, but the female isn't as physically big and built and all of these kinds of things. But in the same sense, men should be, I don't know if trained is the right word, but brought up in such a way where he's not such a weakling, where he doesn't always capitulate to these narratives. Yeah, if someone wants to call me a bad boy, I'm a bad boy, but I still got to do what I have to do. At the end of the day, these labels and these identifications are not going to stop me and cause me. And this is the other thing, Gemma, is a man really needs to be able to face his fear of being a man. So many men are afraid of their masculine. So many men are afraid to be men. And so a huge thing for what a man needs to do is to be able to confront his own as a man, his own actions, his own being, his own motives, his own purpose, all of these things. What is my responsibility as a man? These different kinds of things is we have to really start, creating a space where men can start to question what their role is, what their purpose is. And history will give us some hints of it. I guess religion will give us some hints of it, but most of it really we have to figure out for ourselves. So there's that aspect to it.
Eugene, you've called your episode "A Firm Yang is a Safe and Happy Yin." Can you go further into that, please?
100%. So essentially, again, whenever a relationship goes bad, I think it's the man's fault. So basically, I have this theory that men are like cats and women are like dogs. And that what I mean by that is men should not be able to be influenced so easily. Like cats, if you try to control them, if you try to train them, 9 times out of 10, the cat isn't going to listen. 9 times out of the 10, the cat's going to do what the cat wants to do. And the cat also is a hunter by nature. It has to be a carnivore. You see, I'm not saying men are carnivores. No. I'm saying men have to be able to find their hunt in life. Men have to find their passion in life. Men have to go out there and do something, build something, get their hands dirty. They have to be a cat, right? And I relate this as being a captain. They have to go and conquer and do something, conquest, something in their life. A man in his original nature is a conquistador. I'm not saying he should be unethical. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he wants to go explore. He wants to go out of the boundaries and somewhat break the rules and defy really everyone in the community. That's a real man. A woman is the exact opposite. Just like I said with Princess Leia, just like I said with Galadriel, their strength and power is in that unity. Their strength and power is that, bringing everything together, bringing the family together. Everyone looks to the grandma, really, when you're meeting families. She's the one that built this family and kept it together thick and thin, all of these kinds of things. So there's that aspect to it too. Could you remind me what exactly, what trajectory we were going on? I lost my thought.
I did too. I just so in the moment. Yes, your title, a firm yang, safe and happy yin.
Exactly. So So essentially, again, it's a man's fault whenever the relationship goes wrong, and because men are more like cats, and men are more of the programmers of the relationship. Men are the ones that should be taking charge. When you go out on a date with a man, you don't want to, be with the man you're like, okay, so where are we going to eat today? I don't know. What do you think? That's the epitome of gay. I don't want to date this guy. He's uninteresting. There's no mystery to him, right? So in that sense, a man needs to be like a cat, right? A man needs to know what he wants and know what he wants to do, where he's going to go, even if he doesn't really know inside, right? He needs to be orderly, and he needs to, say, we're going to do this now, eating is over today, like whatever, like he needs to be able to give the structure to the woman, right? Because the woman is much more free-spirited, much more, again, she's the space holder, but the man is responsible for picking that space and time and all of these kinds of things. So there's that aspect to it too. And then a woman is much more, again, she's more receptive to the community, much more agreeable when it comes to a man is much more, has more tendency to be disagreeable. I'm not saying there aren't agreeable men or disagreeable women. I'm just saying that, that the traditional average, right, is that women are much more agreeable. So they're much more willing to listen to what other people have to say. They're much more willing to bolster other people's conclusions. Basically, a woman is the support, right? She's such a good support. And even in games and stuff, if you don't have a support, the game's over. If you don't have someone in the background that's pulling it and making it all work, that's pulling all the puppet strings and all this kind of stuff. So it's this kind of a thing. So So basically, when a man gives a strong, firm foundation, when a captain is firm and he knows what he needs to do, business-wise and logos-wise, because really what a captain is about logic, right? Because what a captain is he can defy the crew's emotions. The crew's emotions, they matter to him, but they're not as important as what needs to be done and what the wartime circumstances are, right? Whereas a woman, in this immense pressure, she doesn't function as well as a man. because again, a man is built to be, to fight in that pressure. So in this sense, when we allow a man to do his job and be the captain, and when the captain is firm, when the captain is strong, when the captain knows what's good for the ship, in that place, the woman just thrives. Like she is just released. It's like all this pent up, bound up energy, right? Because it's like, till now, everyone was trying to defile a woman. So when there's one Jesus-like man who's not trying to defile a woman at all and trying to give a place where she can thrive and be safe and be protected and all of these things, man, the woman is probably just going to outdo a man, 3-4 times over, not in the physical realm, not in the business realm, not in the logos realm, but in that emotional, empathic, spiritual support, that background support. Man, if there were no woman in this world, this world would be so horrible. I'm telling you, Gemma, is that women are the better half in that sense. Even in relationships, right? Men are very objective, because again, spirit falls into matter. Spirit falls in love with the material. The father loves the mother, right? So the man is very objective, or he likes to objectify. He likes to find desires and objects and conquer the material land, which is the mother, and all these kinds of things. A woman sees past the skin. A woman doesn't look just of how a man looks. How beautiful is that? How amazing is that? That for a woman, it's not just the superficiality. That man is, in some sense, a lot more superficial than a woman. But this is not bad or good. It's just that we're built in such a way, again, in wartime and not wartime, we have different roles and different functions and different things like that. So I guess that's kind of what I want to say on that front. So again, when a man is not a pushover, and even to a woman, like if a woman is being irrational and is going against logic, she's doing something that is not good, that can compromise the efficacy of the ship, right? A man needs to be able to say, no, stop that now, like instantly, like Medusa, I'm cutting the head off. No fear here, like he needs to be instant. And this is what is missing. This is precisely what is missing in our, in my family a bit, like in my previous blood family. I saw a little bit of that too. Like for instance, my father. But this is the thing, once things start to get like survival mode-ish, then the man comes out, right? But before then, it's this pretense of I suppose the man playing good cop and the mom playing bad cop, and this is what I saw right through. This is what I can't put up with anymore. And so it's these kinds of things. It's like when I see weak men, men who are pretending that their nature is weak, and women that are pretending like their nature is very assertive and strong and muscular, and you know what I mean, brutish. Something in me just it doesn't function, doesn't work. And so I have to either point it out or move away or whatever it is,
Yeah, no, oh, definitely. And, I've been on the other side of that dynamic where, I was with a man who didn't step up. So as the woman, and I'll speak for women now too, we feel we've got no choice but to step up. And of course,
Exactly.
when we do that, we're in our masculine energy, but we do lose respect for the men, because somewhere,
Yes.
even if we're not aware and we can't articulate it or process it, we know we should be not have that responsibility on our shoulders.
Yes.
And this is playing out so much in society. Have you got
And
anything?
Gemma, just super quick, I'm just going to interject real quick. And on that note, a woman really doesn't want a man that she likes, that she likes frivolously, that will say what she wants to say and all of these things. This is the friend zone, Gemma, is no woman, a woman will exploit a man that's a pushover. She doesn't respect the man that's a pushover. However, when there's a man that doesn't put up with her, whatever, her antics or her bullshit, she loves and respects him. And some aspect of her is like, dang it, he's such a hard ass, he's so egotistical, annoying, but deep down, she has profound respect for that man. Why? Because that's what a man is supposed to do. That's what the masculine energy is supposed to do, is to do the dirty work. So when the crew, is in revolt, the man says, stop, this is enough. A woman doesn't thrive in that role of conflict, and this is another huge misconception of alpha males. That's another thing we should go into is, now we think alpha males are toxic, they're bullies. It's the exact opposite. You know how much threat is involved in being an alpha male? Everyone is at your throat. Everyone wants to put you, to rip your position apart. At the same time, you're responsible for the entire community's conflict management. So essentially, your ability of an alpha male is correlated to that which you can diffuse war, right? And they've seen studies of this with chimps and stuff. Essentially, when the alpha comes in and breaks up fights, he's impartial and stand up for the underdog. Very interesting. One of the few cases chimps become impartial. It doesn't take sides, right? And so it's these kinds of things. It's like how do you say it? The alpha male, there's huge burden, huge respect. Oh, and the other thing was empathy. Apparently, an alpha male does more empathetic work than any other chimp in the entire community. Why? Because again, the alpha male, the general, the head of the community, and there's alpha females too, don't get me wrong, but whoever's the head of the community has to be responsible for everyone's conflict, everyone's sorrow. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's the king's fault, right? The common problem is the king's fault. So I guess essentially I'll sum it up with saying a man needs to know how to be a king. A man needs to know how to act like a king. And part of acting like a king is if someone disrespects me, I don't give any time of day to them. So it's kind of like this. I call it conditional availability. This is what men don't have anymore. Men are always available. Men will give any attention, any energy to whatever negativity and toxicity is out there. What men need to know how to do now is embrace celibacy. I'm not saying go celibate. I'm not a celibacy believer or any of this, but I'm saying be able to have that option of not being able to give up the seed or your energy or your masculinity to anyone, right? To not let anyone have like a Delilah figure. That's what's happening in the world today. Samson and Delilah, and you know how Delilah cut off Samson's hair. And after that point in time, Samson was no longer had his power. That's the woman that they're creating in the society and the man that they're creating in the society. That image right there, where a man is vulnerable with a woman, and then he's how do you say he's compromisingly feminine, right? And it's not that being feminine is bad, but his guard is down, right? Something about him, it's a little bit unethical, and he's worried a little bit too much about getting that sexual reward or whatever it is, right? And because of that, he forgoes his own respect for himself, really. Because if he had respect for himself, Delilah would never have cut his hair. But it's because of the man's lack of respect for his own that Delilah came in and did what had to be done. That's natural. Because again, I think a woman's role in a relationship is a shit tester. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but she's supposed to be the one that says, are you competent? Captain, are you sure you know what you're doing? Right? And so a man has to be able to say, woman, hush, I know what I'm doing. Hold your horses, I got this, right? But men don't know how to do that anymore. So when the woman comes and says, man, are you competent? He'll get violent, he'll get, whatever. And the last thing he'll do is stay competent. So in this sense, again, men have to be somewhat uncompromising and defiant towards the outer world. And again, I'll reiterate this with saying conditional availability, that a man should respect his own time. And when a man respects his own time, the woman and other men will respect him as well, right? So treat yourself with the level of respect you deserve, right? It's these kinds of things, is that if someone is coming to you and like, I don't know what a good example is, but it's like, if someone's wasting your time, you enabling that, you're giving energy to that person to waste your time. So whether that's a woman or another man, men need to know how to stop time wasting. So much of the masculine energy is being lost in what Charlie calls the Babylon whore. So much of man's masculine energy is being harvested by basically the matrix, the spider mother, right? The feminine gone berserk, right? And that just wants to basically suck the seed out of man, suck the life force and the potential out of man. So it's these kinds of things I think we should talk about. Again, is that man needs to be able to go completely on his own. A woman, right, just like in the Bible and stuff, there's usually a man in her life that takes care of her, whether it's her father, whether it's her brother, until she's handed off to another man who can competently take care of her, right? But a man needs to be able to go alone. At any point in time, he needs to be able to walk away. That is what defines a man. It's his ability to walk away. But today's society, men do not know how to walk away. All men know how to do is surrender and capitulate. And again, I'm not saying wage war and become violent. I'm saying remove yourself from a violent situation. Does that make sense, Gemma?
Oh, definitely. And this is just, I just love this conversation. What's the difference between a man being controlling, which I would say is a wounded aspect, and a man leading with healthy masculine energy?
Very good question. Like that is probably the best question, the most important question for men, and it's coming from a woman. So this just goes to show, you know what I mean? But anyhow, so it's like, let's see. Actually, could you ask the question one more time, just to let me clarify my thoughts while you're doing that?
Okay, so I've been in a very controlling relationship.
Yes.
And so I know what it feels like. I didn't respect that man's leadership because it was coming with a controlling energy.
Yes.
But I know a healthy masculine energy, I would follow the leadership.
Yeah.
What's the difference between those two men?
Yeah, it's such a good question. Let's see. I would have to say logos. I would have to say logic, because again, this is what defines a man. The Son, Jesus, is really a representation of God's logic, logos, pathos, and ethos, right? So if a man is not logical, he is not ethical, right? If he's not logically thought out, if his actions are not based in reality and not based in, morality and all of these things, then again, he's not deserving of respect. So a true leader doesn't need to control anybody. Really what they're saying, what they're doing is allowing everyone to come to their own conclusion, which is what his suggestion was. So a real man, it's not just a man, a real human being is one who questions, right? A real human being is one who opens the floor to everyone. That's a true leader. That's a true king, not a tyrant, a king. Right, a true king is one who opens the court, the floor, and lets the community come in and see for themselves. So a man in this sense needs to be able to conduct an investigation on his own, an inquiry, honest, unbiased questioning and answering, and this back and forth. And so that's also, I think, missing. But you know, the other thing really, Gemma, is that I think when a woman thinks a man is over controlling, or she doesn't like his control, or whatever it is, you know, I think basically that, again, it's a man hesitating or not knowing what he wants, because it's this kind of a thing. You know, when a man says what needs to be done or what he wants, and you know, that's the end of the statement, a woman understands that. Like the feminine role is understanding, right? So when a man delivers a message, and the message is, there's integrity in the message, right? There's a value. There's a I don't know how to say it. There's a real reason. There's a well thought out logic within the message that it's coherent. A woman will pick that up. Women are real sensitive. So this, I guess you were kind of referring to disobey, I think really comes from the woman sensing that a man is conflicted. Because again, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to expand on that while it's in my head. So
yes.
From the woman, when we can sense that the man's direction and leadership is for the greater good, not his personal self-serving good.
Yes.
Serving others, it's serving the relationship, it's serving the family, the community, we will lead. But when we sense it's his own self interest, that's I think when we resent the leadership. Exactly
right. But let me clarify that the self is the world. That we make this distinction, but at the same time, the inner is the outer. You know what I mean? So how I treat myself is how I treat another, right? So in that sense, women don't like a man who doesn't even know how to treat himself right. You see what I'm saying, right? It's like, so if a man, so, you know, we're really getting into deep concepts here, because it's kind of like this. It's like true control is no control at all. True leadership is not leadership at all. It's actually inspiring leadership in others, right? It's not an authoritarian thing. It's not a forcing thing. You may be forced by the facts, but the facts are impartial. It's not a man, or it's not really about me. You see what I'm saying, right? So a man has to be able to logically bring that out and say, hey, like you said, it's for the community. It's logistics. It's obvious. It's for the ship. The ship has to go from point A to point B. And if something is blocking that trajectory, I can't allow it. And so in this sense, man is better to be a controller, because a woman is more prone to emotionally saying, oh, but she doesn't feel too good about this, or he doesn't like this, and I don't know if this is the best decision. You see what I'm saying? And that's fine. That's her role in the community. But the man is the one who says, no, essentially pretends like he's the ego and says, no, point A to point B, that's it. Simple, logical, consistent. So I think really, how do you say? The logical consistency lies in a man's simplicity. And men today are not simple. They have so many complexions. They're so complex. They don't know what they want, So in today's world, I think men, I don't know have to figure out what they want. But to be honest with you, I don't know the best process for a man to do this. I think if you try to become a man, it's going to be inorganic. You see what I'm saying? So in this sense, it's like, I think just questioning and really inquiring to who you are. If you are a man, that man will naturally come out. It's not something you have to go and unnaturally seek, and I have to lift this much amount of weights to become a man, or I have to be this assertive to become a man. No, I'm not saying with rigid parameters. I'm just saying that, yeah, if you question your overly compromising nature as a man, I think your man will naturally come out.
Oh, amazing. I just love it. Okay, Eugene, let's come back to the heart.
Yes.
I loved what you said when you touched on the dating scenario. And
yes.
I'd really like for you to give an example of how you would act when you see a lady that you like and you want to ask her out. How would that meeting, getting to know each other and leading and carrying on through the first date, how would that play out?
Well, how it's played out before was just kind of a direct, I go to them and, I just let them know that they're beautiful. And really, Gemma, I'm comfortable if she's not interested. That's the main thing. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe in the moment I'm like, oh, I got rejected, shit, but the whole point is I'm comfortable even if she doesn't want to do any business with me. She doesn't see me as a competent business partner. I think that's the key. So I guess kind of walk up with that, where, I think so much of men is hidden intentions. And what's really refreshing for a woman is when a man comes up and says exactly what he wants to do. Exactly who he is, exactly what he wants from you, and for me, it's kind of like, I have to know if I have chemistry with a woman before I'm serious with her. Because if there's no chemistry with a woman, why am I in the relationship? If I'm not interested in you, there's no point in me sustaining something that, is a societal value kind of a thing. So for me, I guess, the main way you can go at this is give up pretend, especially as a man. As a woman, you can play that little, hard to get act. That's fine. Perhaps a woman's good at that, right? But for a man, just be straight up, because that's so refreshing to a woman who's, who's in a society where no men speak up for what they believe in. Everyone just talks over men. No one respects men, and these men, again, don't know what they want aside from what society wants. All of these things, they're all capitulating. So when a man has a sense of uncompromising, uncapitulating nature in him, again, just like a good businessman or like a good admiral, he approaches, he accepts rejection if it's a rejection, or he continues on with the proposal if it's a accept, whatever it is. Just be straightforward. I think that's what's lacking with men today is this straightforwardness and this honesty and just upfront.
Oh, definitely. I totally agree from the feminine. So, okay, so she said yes, but, or I don't know, do you ask her for a number or do you ask her for a date? What you tell her she's beautiful, what happens next?
Well, Gemma, this is the thing. I'll be completely honest. Essentially, right now, I haven't really found a feminine who I'm super attracted to And at the same time, there's always a extreme. She's either super attractive or super submissive. And I want the middle. You see what I'm saying? I want a submissive, attractive female who knows what it feels like to surrender, who knows what it feels like to just give in. But today, I think attractive females have this Instagram value or something to them, right? This somewhat of a propped up pedestal value that they don't know when a man of her caliber or higher is in her midst. So in this sense, Gemma, I haven't really been approaching that many females recently. Back then when I was living in Sodom and Gomorrah and I was unhealthy, I mean, just, in bars, I would just go and whatever. And I was underage and all this kind of stuff, clubs, whatever. And so all these kinds of things. And I've done there, been that. Now, as a man who's more concerned about, mental health and bodily health and all these kinds of things, now I'm much more reserved when it comes to women. I don't feel the need to go out and seek a woman. But like you said, if a woman says yes, then yeah, perhaps, I don't know. For me, I'm a very on the fly, this, I'm a very on the fly kind of a guy. I'm very spontaneous, unpredictable, sometimes erratic, sometimes, clumsy. I'm not always so planned out, but yeah. Yes, I don't know if that answers your question entirely, but just to be clear, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, I love it. Now, I'm really keen to get into to explore what's happening with our younger men of your generation. Now, we know that, most of them are nowhere near the awareness of what's going on that you've got. But can we talk about what do you think is something we haven't touched on that is a particular challenge for men of your age in 2022?
Good question. Good question. I know this is a little unrelated, Gemma, but I think a big part of it is food. A big part of it is the foreign chemicals that we're ingesting all the time, because this is the thing, this is the input code, right? What goes in your mouth is what's going to come out of your mouth. Your body, your organism is a computer. So if you put in code that is violent, that is destructive, that is conflicted, what do you think the result's going to be? So it's these kinds of things. So I suppose, I guess that's probably a big hindrance when it comes to men. I don't know, what other things are there?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, just real quick, I guess another thing is ease of access to, like, let's say porn, or let's say, these unnatural points of entry, which is completely inorganic, right? Touching a female is much different than seeing a female on a screen. So it's these kinds of things. I think also accompanied with this toxic masculinity movement, basically bashing men at whatever chance that is gotten. All of these things, again, de-incentivize a man to be a man and to embrace his nature. So I think this is true for the younger males as well. But, to be honest with you, Gemma, I think now, like the kids that are kind of younger than me are a lot better in this regard. I think we're almost over the hump, is that I think they've seen the craziness. They've seen the lack of order, right? The lack of competency, the lack of all these things. And I think the younger kids are seeing this and smart enough to say, this is not going the right direction. And another fun thing I'll bring up is the Yin and Yang reference, right? I think man, he has to begin with order. He has to put his life in order as a knight to go conquer the chaos. A woman is in chaos and disorder, or you could say rest, and she's seeking someone to come in that has a strong control, that has strong order, that has strong logic to justify her emotional capacity, her spiritual, empathetic capacity, right? So in this sense, again, I think a man starts in order to conquer chaos, and a woman is in chaos seeking man's order. Because without man's order, again, we would be in a Sodom and Gomorrah type, pride everywhere type society. So it's these kinds of things. But yeah, Gemma, I'm a big believer, again, in a man taking his own responsibility, that, whatever a man is, put up against, whatever obstacles are put up against the man, it's his responsibility to jump over them, to solve them, to get over the hurdle. So I couldn't tell you generally what I think a man's problem was, or all these kinds of things. But for me personally, again, it was this like Homer Simpson type Family Guy, family structure, or society. Like before I watched this TV show called Modern Family, but it's precisely what I'm talking about, right? It's like this man who is completely an underachiever. He doesn't know what he wants, and all these kinds of things. And again, that I think is one of the bigger hindrances of the young generation of today. Does that answer your question?
Beautifully, thank you. There's two questions I've got in my head that I'm going to say them both because I don't want to forget them, but obviously we can play it out. One, I'm really keen to know your difference between the words submission and surrender. For a woman, because personally, I don't like submission. I feel it's got a lower energetic frequency than surrender. And this is something I actually write a lot about, and my energy comes through the heart. So I'm interested to open that topic. And then I'll remember what the other one was.
Okay.
Oh, I know what the other one was. So so the masculine energy is in his and in the head, and the feminine energy is in the heart. So
yes.
I know when the woman feels confident in the man leading the ship, she can relax and come into her heart energy, which is the love and creative force. So in the individual male, how does he incorporate the heart into his individuality and masculine aspects? But whichever direction you want to go on, I'd love to cover those two subjects.
Very good questions again. Let's see. So surrender and submission. The thing is, Gemma, we also have to realize that sometimes I think a man almost has to surrender to his ability to dominate the situation, his ability to take control, take charge. Again, like we were talking before, sometimes a man doesn't want to be dominant. Sometimes a man doesn't want to take charge. You see what I'm saying? So in this sense, a lot of the times we have to let go of our conditioning. We have to surrender to our conditioning in order to be a dominant man, in order to play out that yang role within the relationship. So in that sense, so it's a little bit difficult for me to explain, but it's almost like, to be a dominant man, I have to surrender to my nature too. Does that make sense?
Not quite. I do. If you could expand on that.
So essentially, I think for men, dominance and control is a byproduct of being a man, of having testosterone, large amounts of testosterone, of being more logically oriented than emotionally oriented, all these kinds of things. And taking control and charge of the facts of the matter, and proceeding with these logical conclusions and caution and whatever. Well, I'm saying that this, because if you think about it, in a court case, if you really want to look at the facts, Gemma, you can't look at the facts with bias. You can't look at the facts with subjectivity. You have to have a level of surrender to know where to proceed from the facts. So in this sense, a man needs to be able to surrender to his dominance. I know that sounds very contradictory, but it's a very yin and yang concept, right? Because really, it's a dominant point in surrender, and then a submissive point in dominance. It's white and black and white, because we're both seeking for something that we don't have, kinds of things, right? That's the attractive force. So again, for a man, I think today men don't know how to surrender to their nature, and what I mean by this is men don't know how to take charge. So whether it's in a sexual act, whether it's in just the basic relationship, all of these things, I don't know. It seems like men don't know how to be more dominant. And this is the thing. It's like, I'm not saying a woman can't take charge, for instance, for sex, right? I'm not saying a woman can't be in control, but even if we look at the lingo, when we say someone goes down on someone, that's really a masculine thing. Because if you think about it, the cation is the one that goes down, and the anion is the one that goes up. The cation is the positive, which is the masculine, So the masculine is going down and the female is really going up on the guy. That would be the correct term. So I guess it's these kinds of things. And also, this is a little bit gruesome, but bear with me, rape, right? There's not many cases of women raping men. You see what I'm saying? That it's the outgrown dominance, it's the unethical dominance, the illogical control that creates a man to rape a woman. So in these kinds of things, and on the other hand, right, because a woman is subtle, right? She doesn't have the physical strength, but mentally, passive aggressively, she can wreck a man. You know what I mean? So in that regard, how do you say? It's like there's this unethical. It's not unethical surrender, but it's this conflicted surrender. So there's this kind of surrender or submission, but see, maybe we should go into that. Let me ask you, what is the problem with the word submission?
As a woman, it feels like I'm doing it because I've been asked to do it, whereas surrender is my choice. So it's more powerful, even though the end result could well be the same. It's coming from my power. It's very powerful to surrender.
You see. So then I'll kind of ask, in some sense, you're definitely right. But in the kind of sexual act, essentially, if the woman doesn't surrender or doesn't, submit, then it's not consensual. So you don't have sex. You don't have that exchange. So in this sense, Gemma, I think a woman's strong suit is to be vulnerable and surrender. Do you agree with that? I guess your problem more is the submissive idea where it's like, because I think the same thing. If a man is unethical, if a captain is not competent and he forces a woman to surrender, that's not organic. So I know exactly what you're saying. It's kind of like, but this is the thing.
I'm not talking about just sexually. I'm talking within the masculine feminine dynamics. The man directs, the woman surrenders, or it's like when the government told everyone to wear masks.
Yes,
that was a submission. It wasn't.
Yes.
So because it wasn't people's choices on the whole. Yeah. They were doing it because they were told to do it.
Exactly. And so this is the thing, Gemma. To me, let's take that example, perfect example. The government says you have to come and do something that's contrary to your health for your own safety, or else we're going to arrest you. Now, a woman, again, her strong suit is not waging war. For me, I would think, she needs to, do what she needs to do to stay safe and not to be arrested, right? And not to be defiled. A man, on the other hand, should not be wearing the damn mask. You see what I'm saying? A man should be the one protesting. That's where proton, positive, right? A man should be the one going up and saying, this is bullshit, and fighting for the woman. So in that sense, again, if the woman was the one who's going up and trying to wage war against this mask, she could get hurt. So it's these kinds of things. It's like not saying a woman shouldn't have healthy beliefs, because again, a woman in the household or with the man or whatever it is should be saying to the man, I don't think this is healthy. Captain, what do you think about this? Like, king, what do you think about this? The queen's bringing you an inquiry, right, of the people. Like, what do you think, right? But it's the man's job and so that's what it was lacking. Again, this is why I blame the men almost entirely. I'll say 90%. I blame the men for not standing up to these tyrannical things. Because this is the thing, like when you think of the Spartans, the gladiators, right, the Roman soldiers, this is not good or bad, but it's kind of this. It's like, if a man is not strong, he has no say. If a king is not strong, he's not a king. There is no respect involved. So this ties in with your earlier question is, a woman should naturally want to, I'll use that word for the moment, submit to a man when he's ethical, when he's logical, when he's well reasoned out, and he can adequately decondition a woman from societal's programming. This kind of a man has no problem. The problem arises, again, with conflicted men, with girly men, and not men that have a side of femininity to them, but I'm saying men who only are feminine, right? Who don't have an ability to be masculine. With these men, yes, the woman has a problem with its control because it's not ethical control, because the man's control isn't thought out, isn't reasoned, isn't these things. But I do want to make clear, Gemma, that yin and yang wise, there's surrender and action. And just like with a mother and a father, the mother is the one that surrenders to the child and keeps the child alive. The man is the one who teaches the child how to live. So it's the difference of this. You see the difference? The man is the one who teaches the reality. The world's going to hit you and it's going to hurt. Do you understand, son? Or do you understand, daughter? There are bad guys out there, who want to get into your pants, right? This kind of thing, right? And then a mother is much more of a kind of do what you want. Not always, right? There's a little bit of a masculine place for a woman too, but a mother is a much more supportive, do what you feel is right, these kinds of things. But when the man is not there to say this is wrong, this is right, then everything's okay. Then everything is fine, and everyone's. It's this thing. It's a trophy for participation. That's no masculine. You see what I'm saying? and in some regards, that's fine. That's great. But generally speaking, what does that do for men? It completely takes out the need for competence. It completely takes out the need for performance, for a man to actually be a man. And so this is the other thing, Gemma, is that women, again, they're much more closer to the mother, which is the material. They're born with a lot of value. Let's reduce it down to the sexual market, because really, if you think about it, it boils down to sex and reproduction. I'm sorry if I'm coming back to it too much, but biologically speaking, a woman, her value somewhat is inherent, right? This idea of virginity, this idea of innocence, this idea of how do you say, beauty. Again, women, when it comes to men, don't look at just beauty. Again, what makes a great captain is great challenges that have been overcome. You see the difference? So men can't just be pretty boys. Men can't just be good looking and that's it, because then you're not a man. You're just a showman. You're just a show pony, right? So when it comes to men have to be able to face pain, pressure, suffering, all of these things, the fear of being a man, the fear of rejection, right? All of these things. Because again, when a man asks a girl, because even in prom, it's more natural for a guy to ask the girl to prom, right? So it's natural for the man to be the one who deals with rejection on the front end. Women have to deal with rejection on the back end, right? So think about this, right? So men have to deal with the upfront rejection, because basically it means the woman's value, her inherent beauty is too much. So it's not worth what the man has to offer, because the man is saying, I'm a provider, I'm good, I'm charming, I'm good looking, whatever he has to offer, right? I'm this, do you accept? The woman says no. That means the woman's value at the beginning was higher. What happens is, after there's an investment, and really it's a biological, chemical, sexual investment, this flips, right? So what happens now is that women now deal with the men's rejection on the back end, because what happened was men gave all of their goodies up front. Men were showcasing everything they had up front, whereas a woman was attracting, hormonally, chemically, biologically, all of these things, like a flower, right? But once the pollination takes place, as a metaphor, an example, right? Now it's flipped. So now the woman has to be a mother and not just be a beautiful girl. You see the difference, right? Now she has to know how to be a matriarch. She needs to know how to be maternal. She needs to know how to keep a family together. Again, how to keep a family alive. That's what the mother is doing. She's keeping the family alive. She's feeding them, right? And then again, the man is the one who teaches the children how to live. What is moderation? What is not? These kinds of things. But again, so I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Oh, I love it. Just just whatever direction it goes in is great. Yes. Let's talk about freedom. Would you say that was the highest goal of the masculine? And what does that look like in today's day and age?
With great power comes great responsibility. And this is included with freedom. Freedom is immense power. It's unlimited power, which means, in some sense, it's unlimited responsibility, right? Because the amount of how do you say? I don't know. Again, just power that you have and influence you have comes with that much liability. So in that sense, yes, I suppose the greatest feat for a man is freedom. Freedom from his peers, freedom from the thoughts of his society, freedom from the opinions of others, freedom to do what he pleases, assuming that what he pleases is natural, organic, and not a horrible thing to the world, right? So in this sense, yes, but again, with that freedom comes liability and responsibility, meaning a man has to be liable and responsible for everything that he does, all the risks that he takes. And, Gemma, personally, I take a lot of risks. I say things that nobody wants to say because I know that I'm the one that should be saying it. If I'm not saying it, who's going to say it? If I'm not the one who's going to go on these controversial grounds and say honest, natural truth as it is, no one else is. So that's one of the most important things a man needs to do, is to be able to cross the boundary when he needs to. Whereas a woman, she needs to play smart. She's not physically strong. She's not built to be assertive, all these things. So she plays smart, right? She influences from the background. And that war is much more complicated usually than the upfront physical confrontation. So it's these kinds of things that when a woman doesn't focus on upfront physical confrontation, again, she's the subtle queen, she's the goddess, she's like, again, the Armin or the Galadriel or the Leia. And again, these are just concepts, but they're great points of reference for other people, because what happens is Leia and Galadriel put down their masculine nature, put down their sword for the family. Right? They remain in the background because they know their power is so much greater in that support role than they could be fighting alongside Luke or Gandalf in the front lines. You see what I'm saying? So to hold up that yin and yang balance, which is unlimited energy, which is reproductive force, which is the sexual spark, right? If we really want to honor these roles, again, there are things that are natural. And so really, Gemma, to kind of summarize what we went through, all we're doing now is returning to what is natural, and we don't have to do a thing, really. We don't have to do a damn thing, because when we're in survival modes, when we're stranded on an island, men do what men do, and girls do what girls do, or women do what women do, naturally. No one has to tell them what to do. The men go out and hunt or whatever, and go out and explore and go into the dangerous. The women are in the back taking care of everybody, doing the herbs, gardening. It's all of these things. So at the end of the day, Gemma, we don't have to do a thing. What we're doing is unnatural. Does that make sense?
So much. Oh, amazing. Eugene, let's open up. We can start winding down, and we can go for as long as you've got something to say. So please take the rest of the time to touch on what you feel we haven't opened up in this conversation. What is the message to men? What else would you like to say?
Yeah, I'm just really going to skim over my notes, because I've been going off the book, but basically, if I maybe haven't covered something, I might want to cover it. So just give me 1 second here. No, that's fine. Yeah, I covered most of what I wanted to cover, but let's see. Yeah, I think I said that basically decadence is entirely a man's fault. A weak man is a weak society. It's just that simple, really. A safe ground for a woman. Even in Lord of the Rings, outside Rivendell, there are these elves, guardians protecting. That is the ultimate masculine image, is that guardian, that soldier that stands in front, risking his life for the life behind. You see what I'm saying? For the protected realms behind. So that image, I want to leave with everybody is that, standing outside of the grounds, outside of the limits, or on the edge of the limits, almost testing the rules of the society, at the same time, by doing so, respecting the society. Because this is the thing, at some point, stagnation is not fantastic, So when we say inaction, it doesn't mean no action at all. From the right inaction, from the right stillness, the correct action will arise. This is essentially what we're saying when we say take no thought. What we're saying is, from the place of quietness and stillness, which means I look at my thought and there's no division between my thought and something I want, some ideal outside of my thought. From that stillness, the right action will arise, right? So we're not saying don't move. We're not, because if you don't think, you can't go from point A to point B. You can't, eat food. You can't do all these basic mechanical things. So in this sense, the right mechanical activity will arise, the right action will rise out of inaction. So again, in this sense, how do you say? In order for a man to protect peace or protect the village and to safeguard that peace, he needs to be confronting with his thought every day. He needs to be looking at his actions every day. He needs to be looking at his words every day. He needs to be, no separation, literally a mirror. Like his actions need to be a mirror, a reflection of himself, of his conduct. So these kinds of things, I guess that's a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, so just relating back to the fact that the man's conduct is the reason for the downfall of the society. We cannot blame women. We cannot blame children. Oh, and a good thing we can go into is Godfather. The Godfather, Michael Corleone says, or Vito Corleone, the top dog, the grandfather, says to Michael, women and children can be careless. Men cannot. Now, this is not a diss. People think this is a misogynistic statement. It's not. Gemma, it is unfortunate that a man has to always be calculating, always be measuring threat, always be under stress, always be under pressure, all of these things. But it's a reality of the world that sometimes things get barbaric. So in this sense, that's what he means, is that men have to be prepared for war every second of his life. Every second of his life, the boundaries of the community could be broken into, and some guys who want to rape and pillage this community can come in. So in that sense, men cannot afford to be careless. Men have to always be playing chess, right? Men have to be always thought out with their actions so that females and the children of the community can have freedom, so that they can bring the freedom into the man's life, right? Because a man, in some sense, is without freedom in this regard because he's always needing to protect. So after the protection is done, then the woman decorates, ornaments the life within. You see what I'm saying? Makes the living space beautiful, so that when the man is done protecting and comes back into the house, he is welcomed. He is respected. And to give that analogy with cat and dog again, what do dogs do when you come back to your house? Oh my gosh, the owner's back, right? Like, oh, we're all over him, all these things. Men love that, right? Men love this simple display of affection and care and neediness. That's the other thing. Men are not built to be needy. Okay, we have to get that idea out of our minds. But yes, sometimes we can be romantic, we can be chivalrous, but our edginess comes from the fact that we don't need you, and not in that sense, like what do you call it? Like we're going to always be divided, but in the sense where a man, like I said, conditional availability, that his time is really valuable, so valuable to the point where he has a passion. He has a fire that's outside of the relationship, that fuels his relationship, that if he does not have some work that gives him value, the woman won't respect him. You see the difference. So I kind of look at it as a man is looking outside of the relationship, almost like he's like a moth kind of looking at light, and the woman is facing into the relationship. So you see the difference, right? That a man is always looking and objectifying outside of the relationship, if that makes sense, right? And a woman is concerned with again, neediness, pulling the man in, settling, let's slow down, let's calm down. So it's these kinds of things. And so again, a man needs to know how to surrender, kind of like what you were saying earlier and what I was saying earlier. Sometimes a man has to know when to settle down, but sometimes he doesn't settle ever. You see, and to know this, when is the right time to settle, when is not, is the job of a man.
Yeah, two things there I'll add. I loved your analogy of the male and the female. So would you say the masculine builds the house and the woman decorates the house?
Yes, something like that. However, I do think the woman, we need to take the woman's advice sometimes when building the house, because sometimes it's too logical and we just have one TV that's empty, and it's dead, it's dead space, it's this kind of a thing. So in that sense, yes, perhaps, but again, like you said, I like what you had to say, that example, because logistic wise, men want to sort out what's the most optimal function of the house. And then after we meet those optimal basic requirements, women go off, do what you got to do, make it.
And the other thing, when you said about men and neediness, a memory came to mind, and honestly, it was probably the worst thing, one of the worst thing a man has ever said to me, and I'll put it out there. Honestly, a man said to me once that he would die without me. And that felt terrible. I just want to say, I'm not one to put down, but that memory came up, and I know some men might think that's quite romantic and what a woman wants to hear, and she might not be able to process it, why it would seem romantic, but it actually feels very, doesn't feel right. So I just had to add that.
Beautiful. See, that is literally perfect. That's what I'm talking about, is when a man invests 100% of himself into a relationship, the woman stops respecting him. Yes. You see what I'm saying? That the woman respects a man that, like an admiral, he has to run his own crew. He has to, do his own thing. He has to, make money, scavenge, whatever it is, go out, and that's his role. And to like a man cave concept, right? There's something that a woman can't touch in a man, right? There's something that a man, again, is not uncompromising towards a woman. And when a man doesn't have that, the woman can just castigate, reprimand, disrespect the man. However, because a man is not worthy of respect. If the man, like you said, because a man who's going to die without you can't protect you, can't even protect himself. Right? So in that sense, a woman is kind of looking for a man who not only can protect himself, but can protect others. And this protecting others, right? How do you say? In some sense, is conditional, right? A man, even though love is unconditional, I agree, but a man has a responsibility and a necessity to set up certain boundaries and guidelines. And if he doesn't, the relationship will never work out, will never be happy, because every day he's going to be stepped over. And so in this sense, men need to know how not to be stepped over, right? And yeah, saying I'm going to die without you is please step over me. It's the same language as please just step all over me. Like basically, Patrice O'Neill had a funny thing about this. He says what women do is they get tired of. So if a woman shark gets tired of a man shark because he's too shark-like and he's too predatorial, she'll go to a shrimp and she'll date her food. And after a while, she'll basically, this is this is like the Black Widow reference too, right? Where the female, or the praying mantis, where the female eats the male, right? Because after the act, she doesn't need him anymore. So it's this kind of a thing. It's like, to some extent, again, females have this tendency of shit testing, of competency testing, sorry for the French, right? Of competency testing a man to know whether or not he's a real shark, or whether or not he's a real whale, or whether or not he's a real captain or not, And so in that sense, what today's society is doing, like you said, is creating this Hollywood romance idea of, I had a huge mistake. My first relationship, I was outside of my girlfriend's house, waiting on some ledge with flowers, with whatever, chocolate, whatever. I probably had poetry. I can't even remember. It was so horrific, right? 8-7 hours, so needy. And because I'm so needy, she has no time for me, right? And then in the future, I realized, oh my gosh, girls like bad boys. And it's not bad boys. See, we call it bad boy, but what a bad boy implies is a man don't want to waste his time. Because then, he's not compromising, he's a bad boy. You see what I'm saying? That's where the bad boy comes in. It's not really a bad boy. It's an uncompromising man. It's an untamed lion. That's the best way to look at it. It's a lion that's in his full glory, in his full, amazing, right? And what a woman does is come and try to leash him. And that's okay. To some extent, Samson gets leashed, but he needs to know when to break out of it. You see what I'm saying? That when the relationship is not working, he says, okay, certain guidelines must be met, or else this is not, you have to get off the ship, jump ship, you have to walk the board, whatever it is, right? So it's these kinds of things. And this is where submission comes into play. So if a man is completely tamed and dominated, then again, his rule is unethical, really, because he's a slave, essentially. He's a slave to his own desires, right? Because he's not wild. So what's going to happen is now, this woman relationship is going to be like servitude. It's going to be slavery. And it's not about slavery, right? It's about a voluntary, we both want to come together. And that's the other thing. What's really attractive, like you said, what's unattractive is a man who says, I'll die without you, all these things. What's really attractive is a man who's going to be okay no matter what.
Yes.
You see, the exact opposite, who knows how to look after himself first, and then from then on, it's what he needs to deal with, right? Whatever job comes into play. So that's what's really attractive is a man, again, how do you say, thick and thin. It's thick skin, really. It's thick skin on a man that's really attractive, because that means no one's really going to be able to get to him, meaning I won't be able to get to him. So I'm going to try and test his competency and get to him. And if he is conditioned enough with Hollywood and romance and all these things, he'll be this needy man, and then I'll get to him, and then I won't respect him, and I'll leave him. And that's why 75% of marriages are in divorce. And so this is the thing. It's a man's responsibility. Again, I'm bringing it back. It's as a programmer, as a cat, as the positive spark, it's our responsibility to decondition the thoughts of Hollywood, of all of these fake romantic ideals, all of these things, and tell it how it is to women. There are no men who tell women how it is anymore. So, yeah.
I want to get into two things here. So would you agree that the men's priority is mission, which extends to freedom, and the woman's priority is relationship, which extends to love? And so when they can come together in unity and harmony and balance, you've got the perfect dynamic, the organic dynamic.
Yeah, the 69, the yin and yang, and that's exactly it. So, the lamb and the lion will lay together, right? So the lamb is the logical thinking capacity, really it's thought, right? And really, Gemma, thought is very insignificant, right? So a man's role is just a minimum role that needs to be filled. That's it, right? So when we say a man needs to be dominant or controlling and all these things, it's not because that's important. It's because if the job isn't carried out at the end of the day, it's detrimental to everybody, right? So that's where thought comes into play. That's where logic comes into play. The rest is no thought. Really, the subconscious mind is the feminine mind, is the receptive mind, which is no thought at all, which is no conscious effort at all, right? So in this sense, right? And I'm actually making a few videos on this right now. Is that people are saying, I want to consciously work with my subconscious? Makes no sense. How do you go to that which is unconscious and consciously talk to it? Makes no sense. What I can do is remain with my conscious, is remain with my thoughts, my actions, my words, the tangible, real things, and then question that. And so that's the role of a man. And then for a woman, she's the life-giving principle, the mother principle. She's the one that's gonna, even if the man turns on her, she's still gonna say the children are first. She's the next generation, essentially. She's the one who's going to feed the next generation, right? And so, all of these kinds of things. And so like you said, and then the heart is love. And if you think about the heart, Leo, the lion, not always rational, sometimes very irrational. You see what I'm saying? For good or for worse. Sometimes being rational is not the best thing. Again, take no thought is not a rational thing. You don't rationally take no thought. That would be a thought. Thank you very much, right? So in that sense, if you can't ration out this thing called meditation, in the same sense, that there's something in this world that needs to be left irrational, and that's a woman, right? And it's not a bad or a good thing. We look at logic as bad or good, too harsh, toxic masculinity. No, not a bad or a good thing. Emotion, bad, good, no. It's when, like you said, with the correct logic fueling the emotion, the emotion, right? When the emotional body can be kept in check with correct, logical, thought out, reasonable, practical things, that's heaven on earth. That's, again, the lion lays with the lamb. That's peace on earth. That's peace for 1,000 years. And Gemma, to be honest with you, even if we don't achieve this on a world stage, I think it's going to happen on smaller communities real soon. I think that people are starting to see that what they're portraying as female, what they're portraying as male is literally the opposite, right? So as long as we're doing the exact opposite of what these bullshit movies are telling us to do, we'll probably be okay with a few questions, right? There's always room for questions.
Yes. I want to get into what vulnerability can mean to a healthy masculine, and then we'll wrap up with your final message to men. But let's get into vulnerability, because, I mean, can men be strong all the time, or can they relax sometimes and come into their heart and be vulnerable? How does that play out?
Yeah, very good question. Because again, behind this thick skin is a vulnerable child. Yes. Every man, right? And really, it's embracing that child that is what makes a real man. Because it's this ability to safeguard a level of innocence in his maturity, right? That even in the maturity, there's a quality of purity and innocence. That is a real man. So yeah, in that sense, yeah, vulnerability. I mean, for me, in the sexual act is real vulnerable, as you can see, I don't care much about clothes or no clothes, but this is the thing. It's like in that act, it's different. I feel much more weak. I feel much more like someone can take advantage of me. And I think that's natural. I think when you open up to someone as an energy exchange, you're opening to ridicule. But, Gemma, there's also a vulnerability in regard to a man being able to be vulnerable. Because this is the thing. When I say, don't worry about the opinions of others and a man needs to be able to go on his own and all these things, really, he's still vulnerable, right? I like to say, I care so much about other people that I stop caring about their opinions. So it's not my apathy, it's not my lack of care for people, it's my lack of care for irrational, bullshit reasoning, or for, genetic inconsistency, like whether it comes to diet or whatever it is, right? For me, that logic is more important than how do you say, the emotions of the community. And so in that sense, I'm very vulnerable, what do you call it, Gemma? Because if you think about it, it's like, it's, how do you say, you're again, just like with the alpha male example, you're putting yourself at a very vulnerable spot if you're going to speak anything remotely close to the truth. I'm not saying I speak the truth. That's something you have to figure out for yourself, right? But I'm saying if you're even going to go close to speaking the truth, you have to be immensely vulnerable with who you are, with what others think, with all of these things. Because this is the thing, I'm not insensitive to what others people think. I take everyone's criticisms, everyone's acceptance and support to heart. But the thing is, that's not going to stop me. That's what I think true vulnerability is. Just like with the child equation I was telling you, is to have this sense of innocence, to have this sense of untampered with, virgin in a metaphorical sense, how do you say, spark within you that isn't compromised by this idea of maturity. So in that sense, I think there's a lot of space for a man to be vulnerable, because, but again, a woman is really the one who teaches a man how to be vulnerable. That's true. But I really do think even in times of so-called war, a man is really vulnerable. It's actually that he's facing his vulnerability that makes him a man.
Yeah, because the safer option is to follow the crowd where there's least chance of attack and criticism. So, that's what a man who's not standing in his truth will take that option instead of standing alone in his truth. But in theory, that's more powerful, I would imagine.
Exactly. But at the same time, like you just said, going with what other people have to say, there's no really opening for vulnerability. This is what the whole capitulation and this mass think, this group think, it really is not wanting to be vulnerable. Because basically, essentially with this kind of like more liberal agenda and all of these things, and I'm not a whole, dualist of, conservatives good, liberals bad. I think soon there's going to be a rise of intense conservatism that soon now the cool new thinkers are going to be liberal. But as of now, I do think it's more sane to be on the conservative side. So in the same sense, it's like, people think going with the liberal agenda is safe because they think they don't have to be vulnerable. But that lack of vulnerability will not allow them to come across what is true. Because when you're so concerned with again, opinions, Charlie always says opinions are like assholes, everyone has one. When you're so concerned about everyone's asshole opinion, it's like you have no room for what you really think deep down in yourself. You have no space to be vulnerable with your own self, with your own thoughts, with your own psyche, and say, what do I really think? right? And I think that's what my journey has been, right? What do I really think is natural? What do I really think deep down? Not what Charlie tells me, not what Colleen tells me, not when Justin tells me, not what my blood family tells me, not when no one tells me. What do I really think? And you know, it's vulnerability. Again, I have to really feel it out, because if I wasn't feeling as a man, I would be lost. You know, so there's a great feminine in me who's balancing and bringing me back and all of these things. So yeah, I hope that says enough about the vulnerability front.
Definitely, I love it. Eugene, what is your final message to men today?
Final message to men. Final message to men. Yeah, I guess just don't be afraid to be a guy, because it's like, you know, you really have nothing to lose. Just like we were touching on at the end here. It's like, I would rather suffer the ridicule, suffer the criticism, suffer all of these things, you know, go through the pain and the pressure of other people's judgments than be someone that I'm not. Because to me, it would be harder. It would be more fear-inducing. It would be more unlivable. It would be more claustrophobic if I had to settle for what other people thought about me than be who I really am. So in that sense, Gemma, again, do not be afraid. There is no reason to be afraid, because in the end, everything will be, you know, judged. Everything will be revealed. Everything, the apocalypse will happen, right? In the end, the truth will come out. So there's no point in hiding your vulnerability in lies. There's no point. I think, again, the last thing I'll say to men is go forth and stop fearing. Stop fearing yourself. Stop fearing the idea of what it is to be a man, and just face your fear, because there's no other thing really to do.
Very powerful. Wow.
Gracias. But thank you, Gemma. I have to thank you, because again, you are one of the most, like seriously, one of the most mature ladies, because again, the girls of this age, they're trained, they have this masculine knee-jerk reaction when they hear something, and they can't listen when a man has something to say, right? And immediately what they do is they think this is, you know, they recall their programming, which is all in the past, their knowledge of what it means to be a man and a woman, and they say, hey, this is not right, this is, you know, whatever. But I was surprised that someone even contacted me and wanted me to talk about these subjects, because again, I've only met really maybe 3 women, maybe 4 women that have been able to hear this message and not have a problem with it. And I'm sure there are those watching who don't comment, but seriously, I really commend your patience and really your motherliness, your ability to be a strong maternal figure, because that's oftentimes a lot harder than to be a man, is to be a real woman. Because in today's society, it's easier to be a manly woman than it is to be a womanly woman, you know?
Well, thank you so much, Eugene.
Yeah.
And you have a special place in my heart, because you're right between my 2 sons. So it's, I'm very honored. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow. Where can people find you, Eugene?
Linktree and then all E1. So alleone. And reason being, you know, this is again the alone thing. This is the man thing, right? Is that when you go alone, you realize you're not alone. You know, you're not lonely. You're not by yourself, right? That really what it means etymologically to be all alone is to be together, all one, united, connected. Because in a disconnected world, disconnecting from a disconnected world is reconnection. So going alone oftentimes is the path to unity. So that's the idea behind the name. But yeah, so Linktree, you know, however you type that link in, and then slash or backslash or whatever, ALLE1. And it's also a play on all and L are one, right? The masculine, the feminine are one. So these kinds of things. So there's that. And yeah, from there, you can find me on different social medias. You can go look at my Dear Hippocrates channel that has probably all the health information you would need. And if you want to book a consultation with me, I can definitely run through, I do 30 minutes real short, and I can run through a lot of information on there on your lymphatic system, organic and inorganic plants, iontophoresis, which is the essential minerals that your body needs. Because, Gemma, really, I don't really talk about men and female as much as I talk about our organism, male and female problems, as much as I talk about how crucial it is to be eating things such that are not anatomically inconsistent with the body, because food is first. And the spiritual journey does not start before you filter out the bad foods. So as long as we're ingesting poisons, there will be no space to learn. Learning only comes when we're not damaging ourselves and harming ourselves, when we're vulnerable, like you said, when we're innocent. So yeah, I'm sorry, that was a long thing, but yeah, Linktree all in one. And yeah, you can find me there.
And I'll drop those links down in the description if you can send them to. And we can also find you on Charlie Freak's channel.
Yeah, I don't know if he has links of me all the time, but definitely from time to time, I'll definitely be joining those episodes.
And Eugene, I've just started a offshoot series from this called Man Speak, and Justin was my first guest, and we spoke about fasting, because often during these shows there'll be reoccurring themes that we can't spend a whole episode on Heart Warriors on, but I really feel it's important to get that information out in a solid one episode. So sure. If it resonates, I'd love to have you back to talk about food, that passionate the aspect that you just brought up then, and we can do a whole nother show on food and the importance of that if you'd like to.
I'm game. I'm ready to go.
Amazing. Well, thank you so very much. Number 22, and you're 22 in 2022. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. You are honestly just the shining light of the future, for the younger generation. So much wisdom and knowledge. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely be back on Man Speak.
Thank you.
For everyone, if you could like, share, subscribe, get the message out there, especially for our younger heart warriors. What a shining example Eugene is. They really need to see this. And I know a lot of older men that'll get a lot of, take away a lot from this. So, and I'll be back in a few days with another episode of Heart Warriors. Bye.
Thank you.